Why is a medical practice not just another small business? There's obviously a lot of things that need to be considered. You've got things like heavy compliance environment, people, heavy business, doctors, admin, nurses, contractors, sensitive data and privacy obligations, which are extraneous, complex billing and cash flow cycles between the practice and the persons working in there. This means legal risk isn't just in one place, it's across the contracts, the staff, the privacy, the regulatory issues, the ownership structure. And, I quite often see and review documents that look as if they've been sort of drafted on Microsoft 98 and never updated, these old sort of contractor agreements and so forth. And it's pretty clear to me that, the legal side and the compliance side is often neglected in these practices. And it's usually because they're just busy. These people, they're like you and I. We're always busy. You get caught working in the business, then on the business. And it's not because they don't care, it's because they don't necessarily realize it until it becomes a problem.
Absolutely. I agree, Michael. And to that point, probably just adding a little bit to why is the medical practice is a little bit different to other ventures and business operations, because it heavily relies on the exertion of the key man. Generally, there's one or two central principles around a clinic. So take it, whether it's a primary care or a specialist center, they're the ones who sort of work the business up, sort of build a little bit of a patient base and attract sort of the idea and the premise of other doctors coming and seeing those patients or work through that patient database. Consequently, it heavily relies on the existence and exertion of a principal practitioner, and therefore that, in my view, inherently sort of puts restraints on how much a business can truly be scaled. I guess one of the traps that doctors fall into when they start a business is very much sort of these purported solutions or groups that they say, well, we've got everything ready in one umbrella. You call it scale my clinic, or otherwise you're trying to scale something inherently not scalable. And then therefore the use of templated documents, the use of just utilizing the random stuff they find to extend an employment agreement. And as you pointed out, these instruments are just as good until something goes wrong. And just literally before our conference, we've been dealing with a matter that there's really no proper instrumentation by way of a unit holdership agreement, and the clients are in major dispute, limited ability for a client to get the other director out. And one party is working very, very hard to build a business. The other party is just doing his own thing outside the business. And when it comes to the sort of junctures and sort of points in business, which inevitably will happen to all of us, that's where you've got major problems. That's when things are costly and out of control. So they sort of think, well, look, I might save myself 20 grand legal fees to not to need to worry about this because my friend used the same sort of setup. Oh yeah, well, yeah, my friend's got a similar thing. I want to set up supposedly a unit trust and I want to operate it that way. But little they know is, the function of those deeds and all of that in every single client is very different.
So one of the first traps is structure. What are people getting wrong at the start? And you've touched on it there. Wrong entity for the stage of the business. And then you might have other issues as well, like no separation of business assets and personal assets, tax decisions made too late, bringing people in informally without thinking about ownership or control. You've touched on them, and that certainly comes into your expertise as an accountant and also financial advisor. And the number one issue with not just medical practices, all businesses, but we'll work it out later. Don't worry about it. We'll work it out later. And that's because everyone's busy and trying to do their job, do a good job for their clients and look after their health, look after their patients. And I totally understand and respect that immensely. However, you do need to make the time to work on the business, and you need to put your trust and faith and confidence in the right people to look after your business, people who are switched on, fast, reliable, consistent. And that's, why they talk to people like yourself, get the quality of service and the speed of communication, and they get calls back and they get replies to their emails. All these things that you think are common, which aren't actually that common in professional services there. So, these are the most important things when you're looking for. And if you're not getting those things from your lawyer or your accountant, it's time to change. You don't need to put up with it. Medical practices and doctors out there, and you're paying money for a service and you deserve the best. And it's as simple as that. That's the way I look at it, PJ.
Absolutely.